got Michelle.
Do you think newer sports like and teams like Philadelphia Soul, do you think it'll ever take off and become like the 5th big sport in this town? Or, I mean, I know they have they almost went undefeated. So, do you think they'll ever take off and become just as big as Phillies, Sixers, Flyers, Eagles?
They actually just lost their 2nd straight game. They're having a great season. I think it was 63-62. I don't think they'll ever take root like the 4 major sports teams. I think you would have a better chance with MLS, with Major League Soccer, which is coming to Chester. They've got a stadium there. It's going to seat nearly 20,000 persons, which is going to be awesome. But the bottom line is we root for the sports that our parents rooted for, that we played as kids, and I just don't see that landscape changing. Now, if the Soul win 5 championships in a row, we'll certainly will be talking about it, but I still don't think they'll get to that level. That's just me, John.
We have Bon Jovi, right, ladies?
That's Philadelphia Bon Jovi's.
There's the difference. Michael has an hour and a half every night, so he can stretch. John has a minute and a half, maybe. He has to say Bon Jovi.
I get 5 words.
But seriously, and I'm being serious here if I can for a second. How difficult is it, because I did play that game for a while, to compress all the sports into 2 minutes and change maybe when you have a team in the playoffs and another team playing at home?
It's really hard because you feel like a drive-through, like a fast food drive-through. You feel like you're not giving them the quality that they deserve. Hopefully there's no NBC 10 cameras.
We'll get you the copy over there.
It's really tough, and that's why we try to go a little longer than the producers in your ear yelling at you to rap, because they have to do a last weather.
Are you saying they spend too much time on the barometric pressure?
A little bit. You know, like there's a chance of something happening today, a chance of showers, a chance of this, a chance of that. We have to get the scores right when we do the sports. But it is very, very difficult, and you know, I guess I'd like to work at Comcast Sportsnet. But
you know what? Pat Gilligan's nearby. We can work a trade out maybe.
You have to throw in a bunch of other stuff with me to trade for Michael. So 5 weathermen to be declared.
Brian Spielman is shooting us for Comcast Sportsnet. Just repeat everything you just said. We'll get it right to the NBC 10. I'm sure you'll be fine.
We got time for a couple more questions. Here, and then we'll have to wrap this up. This is Jennifer.
You said that you don't like to criticize players, but has any player ever held anything you said against them like in a newspaper?
Players are too nice to them.
You start, John.
You start.
Oh yeah, it's unbelievable, and I know that many of the teams have, if not NBC 10 on in the locker room, they have Comcast Sportsnet on in the locker room, and there have been several occasions after which we've had a broadcast and we've been critical of the teams, after which we found out about it. Larry Ball, who I absolutely adore, very fiery personality. I always thought, shouldn't he be preparing for the game and not watching Daily News Live? I mean, really? He's watching Daily News Live? Larry's quite upset, and I think we better go and see right now. And the same with the Flyers. I had said something. One of the Flyers players was involved in a little back and forth with one of the Montreal players. This is years ago, over a young lady, over the and the affections of it. It never happens. And I found out about that, and I mentioned it on the air. Not good. Not good. Yeah, Zach Hill came up real fast and said, so-and-so is really upset. I think you better go see him. And he was the enforcer on the team, not a smart. So these are new.
But you know what, Mike? If you ever decide to leave sports, there's a program called Cheaters now that needs a home.
Yeah.
He's working for that. We have another question over here.
Hi, what's it like working with the government?
Working with fantastic, because no one goes by a pizza pie, grabs off the top layer of cheese and balls it up and puts it in his mouth.
That's why we love him.
That's why we love him. That is true. He's unbelievable. He is. When we first started this at Comcast Sportsnet, I was not sure that the governor should be on. At the time he was the mayor. And does this really add anything to the program? Because you have Vaughn Hebron, who played the game, and you have Ray Litcher, who's a Hall of Famer. but the governor has shown himself to be, he's the everyman and woman, he's the fan. He's got his season tickets and he's out there, not just when it's nice out, he's out there if it's pouring rain or it's freezing cold, and he knows about the college players that are coming out in the draft and the Eagles might want to select. So I think he's there legitimately, and his personality is great. He's just a very smart guy. He's a very warm guy. And what's amazing to me is when it was election time and Mayor Street was running for re-election, and the governor, we would have just watched a 3-hour football game and then a 2-hour post-game show, and I'd turn on Channel 10, and then right after the weather, they would have the governor with Mayor Street strategizing for the election campaign, and I'm thinking, how is this possible? I'm exhausted. I just watched a 3-hour football game and reported on it, and he's strategizing at the mayor's house, so he's amazing.
We got time for one final question.
First comment for John, I want to say I watch you over all the sportscasters because you are positive, what we were touching on earlier. But I was wondering how much of an effect the negativity of some of the other sportscasters you think, how much do you think that really feeds into sort of the overall attitude of the typical Philadelphia fan? You know, we are, as everybody says, so angry. Do you think the negative media kind of contributes to that?
You talking about WIP? that is probably the biggest challenge in our business these days, because you have this, and listen, the only people that are going to call in on talk radio are people who are angry. I mean, usually you don't hear people calling in complimenting, hey, he's doing a great job, let's give it to him. So it becomes this furor, and then the news directors hear about it. Hey, everybody's hating on this guy, we got to go, get on that story. And yeah, it kind of snowballs, and now with blogs, and people can put anything on the internet and take pot shots at people and personal shots. It gets over the line sometimes, and then I think it's really affected newspaper columnists to be maybe a little bit more angry, or get a little more angry. So it is a big challenge to try to appease your audience and also be fair. Because I think too many times these days we look at athletes, we just look at all the money they're making, and we think of them as these little players on Nintendo, that they're not human beings. Most athletes I've met are trying, and they're trying to get the job done. And the question is, sometimes does it affect the athletes, the booing and the negativity? And I think it does sometimes. And there's a lot of athletes who leave here and say they really didn't like it here because of that. So I just try to maintain a positive mindset most of the time. And when something is wrong, you got to criticize. But it is a big challenge.
Yeah, I think we're the conduit to the public, whether it's print or radio or television, and much the way I get my opinion, I read the paper, I go on the internet, and then you talk to players and you talk to coaches and you form your opinion, and obviously you all have other jobs and you have other things to do with your lives, and the same with the men in your lives, and so we're the ones who are kind of saying, here's what's going on in the sports world today, and that helps formulate opinions. And so you have to, while I don't try not to take myself seriously, I take that seriously, and you don't want to be overly negative, but you got to tell it how it is. And the old line, to whom much is given, much is expected. And if you're making $10 million, like someone we know is, then I would just tear up the sports section and not turn on the TV. Because if someone were paying me $10 million, I would be in the Caribbean or something. I'd be having a good time. But it's tough. You try not to give out the cheap shots, but at the same time, you got to have thick skin, whether you're on this side of the microphone or you're the subject of the interviews. So.
Good questions, great answers, ladies and gentlemen.